Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Christian and welcome to a new live stream episode. So today I've got a very interesting topic, but it's also like a topic that I probably say this, everybody has heard about it. So I think there is no way you're working in IT or you're a tech enthusiast and you have not heard about the CrowdStrike issue or the CrowdStrike outage that happened. I think it happened on July the 19th. And since then, the internet is flooded with, yeah, uh, with content about it, right? People are making videos, news are popping up like every day. There's something new. And well, yeah, I think everybody has heard about it, but I still would like to talk about it as well because I think this is pretty interesting. I've watched a couple of videos online on YouTube and I've also read a few posts and so on. And I just realized there's a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation still around. And I'd like to talk about that with you. So I'm first of all, I'm not really like the full expert when it comes to that particular issue or to that case. I don't have any specific background information, and I still have a lot of stuff to read. And honestly, I didn't have much time to actually go through each of those posts, and I thought it would be great to do it on a live stream together. And let's just have a look at some of the resources that I found. Let's read through the articles together and let's find out what's going on, because I think what is interesting for me personally is the question. So what this incident reveals for us IT pros. What does it actually matter in terms of how we're dealing with updates, how we're managing IT, and how important it is that we do our job? And yeah, it's actually one of the good news that I have to say about this issue is, although it kind of is it's so terrible for like not just the industry, but it's like it's something that's spread out widely across, even beyond the IT industry. You heard like regular news talking about it, and yeah, like everyone has some sort of like encountered it, or it's some to some extent heard about this issue. And even like in with some of the like a um, family party that we had this week, and people were asking me about this. So what the hell is going on? And can you tell me a bit about it? And yeah, so that's how I learned about CrowdStrike, what is going on. And yeah, just to recap a bit of what actually happened, we will go through all of the technical details in a few minutes here. But yeah, so what basically happened on July 19th, 24. CrowdStrike is one of the big cybersecurity vendors out there, pushed an update to one of their endpoint security products called Falcon, and this update caused a blue screen of death on Windows computers. And they just pushed out this update to billions of devices. I mean, literally to their entire user base, which is like crazy, because I think CrowdStrike is one of the few cybersecurity vendors that have a huge coverage in the market. Like this is, I can imagine of CrowdStrike. There's obviously Sophos around, and there might be a few others. Sentinel-1 you might have heard about, but those are really the big names. Also, Microsoft has their own like endpoint security product around, but those are the big names that usually pop up in the industry. And taking into account so how many users CrowdStrike has, this has been one of those incidents that only occur in like a few years, right? In IT industry. So this usually doesn't happen, and it doesn't have such a huge impact. And yeah, again, just like I said, there were billions of Windows computers with blue screen of death, which actually means like a kernel panic, so to speak. Yeah, Windows computers couldn't boot up, and yeah, it was really a disaster for like everybody affected by it. I mean, I just heard about like hospitals. They couldn't get access to their patient data. There were like flights. So there was one airport that had to cancel all the flights. And yeah, they're just, so it's CrowdStrike has customers across like the a vast spectrum of company sizes, like from small and medium-sized customers to big enterprise customers. So you can imagine, like, there are so many people affected by it, and it actually caused a lot of damage, not only to like technical damage, but also I would say if hospitals are affected or airports are affected, this also is some human damage. So, which I would say, like, financial damage is one thing. But if you're risking like lives of patients in a hospital or something like that, this is a disaster for any company. And it's such a terrible incident that only happen every few years. So in IT, it's really special. I think in a few years we will see we will view at this and, hey, did you remember the CrowdStrike issue? I think everybody is everybody knows what we're talking about. But anyway, I just wanted to say hello to you guys. So thanks for popping into the live streams. And by the way, if you have any questions or you want to discuss about this topic, put the questions in the chat. I try to answer them all whenever I can. As I said, I'm not an expert in this field. I mean, you probably have seen many YouTube videos where content creators claim they would have expert knowledge in this type of thing, but honestly, yeah, you see a lot of creators these days just jumping on those topics and just read from a script what they read on X or on the news. And actually, just a few of them really take their time reading through the official articles and stuff and trying to understand what the hell is going on. There were a lot of like misinformation spread around. I just read about something that they blamed Microsoft. So they like in the title of the video of the German news, they said it's a Windows update that caused a blue screen of death, which is entirely wrong. So it didn't have anything to do with Microsoft or Windows Update. So you can't really blame Microsoft for it, actually. And some others that claim like, oh, there are Windows computers affected, so we on Linux is so much better, and Linux is so much more secure that this could not happen on Linux. And yeah, there's a lot of like misinformation around of people like going crazy about it and just jumping on this hype train and thought it would be great to just push out a video the same day this incident happens and without ever reading through the technical documentation. But anyway, I try to be different, right? So I try to not claim to have all the visibility and all the understanding of this issue. I just say, well, let's have a look at this together. Let's talk about it, because the incident or the technical aspect of this problem is just one thing. What is, for me, really much more interesting is the overall question behind it. So what does this mean? What can we learn from this? And what actually has to change in IT so an incident like this will never happen again? Just saying something like this will happen again, but yeah, we try to do our best to avoid running into the same issues. And it also teaches us how much dependent we are on Microsoft and Windows, right? By the way, there's also some other interesting news. I can't really remember the name of the guy who was on TV. It was from a German news TV show, and there was an expert, a cybersecurity expert, who talked about this incident, and he said correctly, okay, so this was an incident of the company CrowdStrike, and they pushed an update to their endpoints, it damaged, and blah, blah, blah. But then he said something about Microsoft 365. And what's a problem with this? That we are so dependent on Microsoft 365, and we in Europe, we should actually try to develop our own equivalent cloud that is GDPR compliant, so we won't run into this issue again. And I said, what the hell? So why is this a Microsoft 365 issue? So in which world do you use those type of news to try to talk about privacy and cloud and GDPR? So this is the entirely wrong topic. So and this guy called himself an expert in cybersecurity. So I'm really a bit confused. So what the hell is going on? Why are people talking about Microsoft and Windows updates again? Why are people talking about Microsoft 365 and GDPR? Yeah, But let us let us take a look behind the curtain of this issue and incidents, and let's go and read through some of the official articles and try to find out what the hell is going on. Because honestly, I didn't take the time to read through all of it. I just give it a quick read through some of the headlines of this article. But yeah, let's find out. Before we start and go into the details of it, I just want to read a few of your messages and questions. Thank you so much for your support. It's really great. Yeah, Christoph, yeah, absolutely. There's CrowdStrike. Yeah, a lot of sauerkraut incoming. Yeah, sure. That's a great joke. So this was a disaster waiting to happen, and I also don't think it was a one-time event. As the industry is controlled by so few players, each upcoming impact will be on massive scale. That is true, yeah. That leads into one of the topics that I wanted to discuss with you. So what the hell does it mean? And it probably is part of the reason why this guy on television talked about Microsoft 365 and being dependent on a few big players in the industry. Yeah, this is to some extent true. But on the other hand, if we go into those details of the product, CrowdStrike Falcon, and some of the reasons why people are choosing big cybersecurity vendors for their endpoint security, we will also find out it is pretty damn hard to be top-notch when it comes to cybersecurity. There's a lot of money, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of a big infrastructure and also human talent needed to provide a strong cybersecurity product to the customer or the IT landscape in general. And that's the reason why there are only just a few big players that can actually do this, right? Not because I'm working at one of those companies, but it's also true because yeah, whenever you try to ask like a small and mid-sized company, so how do you deal with security, they usually outsource it because they just can't handle what is expected from a good security strategy from a company. They can't really deal with it anymore. Like when you think about like 10, 15 years ago, you said, like, how are you dealing with security? Well, you probably should have enabled your Windows firewall. You probably should have running some sort of, yeah, I don't know. Don't make stupid mistakes and then you're fine, right? Avoid phishing, avoid clicking on links that you don't know, and then you are good, right? There are not so many incidents that happen during this time. But nowadays, it's completely different because we have a vast majority in, like, cyber criminals that are really sophisticated. We have organized groups. We have companies that make money with selling ransomware on a service, right? So there's a huge industry and a huge effort involved into creating cyber attacks. And so the other side needs to keep up to that, right? And that means much bigger investment. There's also much more money to be made. And we need to come up with more sophisticated solutions for endpoint security. So, and this is actually where I think like CrowdStrike plays a huge role in that, because with their product Falcon, you can read some of the details here. It's some sort of endpoint security product. It's like a one agent that does a couple of different things. Like it has some sort of telemetry scanner, so that gathers and captures events on a single device, and routing this through some sort of AI powered incident and response management team. And they do a bunch of very top-notch security technologies with all of that stuff involved to help protecting customers. So far, so good. So it's a pretty established product in the market. It's a pretty strong and a pretty well-positioned company behind it. How could something like this happen? So how the hell could an incident happen at a company at that scale that is so devastating and so dramatic? It is a riddle to me, right? I don't know if that's the right word to say it, but I have no clue how the hell could something like this happen, right? And even like CrowdStrike, I think they try to answer that question. We will also learn when we take a look at the timelines in the beginning. Their response wasn't really satisfying, honestly. So I think everybody at CrowdStrike was completely shocked by this as well, because they didn't really expect something like this to happen. And yeah, they didn't really react. I need to be careful what I'm saying here, but I think like their response could have been better, right? So we will take a look at this later as well. Yeah, so I didn't watch any videos from John Hammond or any of the cybersecurity expert on this, because honestly, well, I think like I just have a look at this myself. I just read something in the news, and I think there are many experts and great talented people making great walkthrough guides about this issue and talking about this in a much more knowledgeable way than I can do it. But yeah, I usually prefer to read some of this stuff myself and find out what's going on instead of yeah, just watching a video. Oh, here, by the way, here's the magic quadrant. I think I can I somehow zoom this? So how the hell can I zoom it? I don't know. Oh, well, this is okay. All right, so I need to remember the shortcuts on Mac for Chrome. So here you can see who is in the major quadrant. So this is some sort of like diagram. It's called a major quadrant, where you can see so what type of companies they try to organize companies into categories. This is usually coming from Gartner. They analyze companies and they put them in the magic quadrant to find out so who are the companies that are more like leaders in a specific market or visionaries. So for example, you can see there are only a few companies in the leaders quadrant. So this is like the leading companies in cybersecurity. You can see CrowdStrike is on top here. So it's like really probably the most well-established company in cybersecurity market here. We have Microsoft, we have SentinelOne, we have Trend Micro, we have Palo Alto, we have Sophos. Yeah, Sophos. And then we have also a few others that are not in the leaders quadrant, right? So you can say, so this is probably one of the biggest player, if not the biggest player in cybersecurity where this happened. And they even put that on the homepage to say how good they are, and then something like this happens. I can't imagine the damage for their company's image, and I can't really imagine if, like, what is the long-term impact of this? Like, if you try to sell a CrowdStrike product to a customer is asking, I remember there was a big problem with CrowdStrike, so maybe I'm gonna buy a different vendor, right? So I cannot imagine how big of damage it is for the company. I'm pretty sure the company will survive it, because as you can see, they are a well-established company, and of course they have tons of customers where they have contracts, right? You cannot quit a contract because of an incident, right? So they still need to pay, and if they if the contract expires, well, then the company might think about, so okay, we just had an incident with billions and billions of devices, and there were thousands of our computers that we needed to reset. But do we actually want to spend the time and effort to replace CrowdStrike with a different vendor? So can you imagine how costly this is, right? So yeah, I don't think many companies will switch from CrowdStrike to something else, but they probably will have some problems with new sales. And yeah, we will see. You probably can only see this in like half a year or a year, so how big the damage is for the company. But it's going to be a disaster, right? So, yeah, but it's also quite interesting. They even put it on the homepage. You can see there is a preliminary, I even don't know this word, but anyway, post-incident review, a PIR. This is literally on their homepage, the very first thing you can see on the homepage. So the product is down here. Info about the incidents is on top here. So, like, so this should actually prove you, okay, so CrowdStrike at least understood how big of a damage they have done to themselves and to their customers. So they know they put it on top here, so which is actually good reaction, I think, because that is like 99% of the people visiting their website, they probably want to know about this incident. They don't want to buy their products, they just want to know what's going on, right? So it's actually good to place it on here. And here you'll find some really good information about this. What's quite interesting is that this preliminary post-incident review only occurred yesterday, right? So it was July 19th, right? So here on Friday, July the 19th, it happened. And since then, there was a statement from their CEO, which is kind of, I would say, yeah, okay, it's okay that you respond to it. I mean, it's expected from you as the CEO that you directly respond to it. But it's some sort of like this usual response that you hear from people like this. Is a outage was caused by a defect in Falcon content update and so on. This was not a cyber attack, and what type of devices were impacted. So it only impacted Windows. So Mac and Linux are not impacted. Which was enough for some people to think, oh yeah, Mac and Linux are so much better. Yeah, okay, great. I mean, it could happen on Linux and Mac as well, right? So we will take a look at this later. CrowdStrike is operating normally, and this issue does not affect our Falcon platform systems. There is no impact on any protection. Yeah, okay, great, but that doesn't help me if my computer gets a blue screen of death, right? And so they have a support portal, and we know adversaries and bad actors will try to exploit this event like this. Okay, nothing is more important to me than the trust and confidence that our customers and partners put into CrowdStrike. Yeah, well, you're throwing it away right now, but okay, well, you cannot do anything else than just respond to it in such a way. I mean, I totally understand a response like this. However, we will see the technical details that they published. They published the technical details on their technical blog post a day later, which I think is a long time to react to something like this, honestly. And also, this post-incident review is like 5 days later, which is, in my opinion, a bit too long. So, but anyway, now we have this. We can now read through all of this stuff, and let's go through it together. So yeah, their stock shares went down significantly. Yep, that's right. I even thought about if it would be a good time to actually buy stocks from CrowdStrike. Maybe this is a good time because you can still see, like, they are still in the magic quadrant. So it's not like you're buying like stocks from a no-name company. So this is like I would say like the Mercedes or something like this in cybersecurity, right? So maybe it's a good time to buy stocks, but hey, no financial advice here. Yeah, I didn't buy any stocks from from CrowdStrike, but it's like, well, for some people it might be a situation they just want to. And it's also quite I saw this post from Microsoft. They blamed it on European laws, which is also kind of funny because what has European laws to do with something like that, right? Nothing. This is a completely stupid response from Microsoft. I don't understand why they said it, but hey, anyways. So they should just replace the entire front page of their website with the word sorry for a while. Yeah, I don't really know. So honestly, I think if they want to be professional, so if they want to act professional, they shouldn't say sorry. So they should exactly do something like what they have done. So if I want to know about what's going on, I don't want to hear the word sorry. I want to hear what the hell happened, right? And this is the best response you can actually do, is have a detailed technical response with timestamps and everything. So what went wrong and why? I just think it has come too late. But anyway, no, we have it. Let us go through it. Never heard of CrowdStrike before. Most companies I work either use Cisco, Palo Alto. Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're into cybersecurity and especially endpoint protection, you probably know this name, but I mean, sure, there are other competitive solutions as we have seen. It did happen on Linux. Yeah, okay, so this has to be some previous type of event, but yeah, this also proves, well, it only happened on Windows, but it could have happened on Linux and macOS as well. They simply just didn't this just didn't impact this particular incident. But of course, right, if you are running this, or if you're running any software on Linux or on macOS, of course there can be an issue that crashes the system. I know that macOS has done some changes the last years to make sure this is not happening, right? Like Microsoft, they allow some deeper access to the operating system, or to the kernel of the operating system, to cybersecurity companies, so that they can operate on a layer, on a lower layer on the system. And when they mess up something there, it's going to cause the system to crash. And macOS, for example, Apple had this before, as far as I know, but they kind of changed the operating system in a way to prevent developers getting that low level access. So if you're developing an application for macOS, you cannot get access to those deep system functions anymore. You have to use their specific exposed APIs or whatsoever to get access to system information. Like on Windows, you can still develop your own type of driver that somehow talks to the system and can get direct information about it. I hope this is correct, but as far as I know, it's how it works. But when you mess up something on that layer, it's causing the system to crash. And that's why we usually see a lot more blue screen of deaths, or a lot more kernel panics on Windows than on Linux or on macOS. Not because the system is insecure or something like this. No, it is just because like Windows or Microsoft allows a much deeper level of system access. And if you mess up something there, so if you're developing a printer driver that is damaged, or if you're developing a driver for a USB keyboard that has some sort of nasty code in it, that could cause the system to crash and cause a kernel panic, which usually is a bit different from how it works on macOS or on Linux, where you don't have that deep level access when you're developing an application. And that's kind of the reason why people think that Windows is worse than Linux or macOS, which is actually not really true. I mean, it's also like a lot of application, or like driver developers really like that they have this low level access on Windows. And it also means for cybersecurity vendors that you can get much more information, or a much more direct access to the operating system and gather more information about the system. But it also means if you mess up something on that layer, this is something that can happen. So we have just seen a company messing up their code at this deep level. And yeah, that's gonna cause the problem. So far, that's the technical aspect of it. But sure, we go through some of this stuff here. So a lot of misinformation that is or was online is that people thought they have written a damaged driver. So this is because of the low-level access that I talked about. So they have a driver somehow that gets access to those those low-level system information, can directly talk to the kernel on Windows and so on. And they messed up something there. But that's actually not true. So when we read, so what happens, here's a lot of like blah blah we already know about, right? So the Falcon platform, the problematic rapid response content configuration update resulted in a Windows system crash. So what the hell is going on? So I don't really know, but if you have to give me a second. I don't really know what's going on. Give me a second, please. I'm so sorry, guys. I ran down and up the stairs 2 times. I don't know what was going on. So I need to do more sport. Oh my god. Those Amazon guys. They now want like a 6-digit password so that they can deliver some stuff you buy on Amazon. It's so annoying. Please forgive me. I need a few minutes to breathe. All right, so I'm just reading a few of your comments here. My god. I'll probably give you an update the next week on when I start doing sport again. You should not forget I was ill like the last 4 to 5 weeks. And I just recently recovered from flu. And now it's getting like, I need to start at 0 again with my training, right? It's like, Anyways, okay. All right. So, all right, so here, the problematic rapid response content configuration update resulted in a Windows system crash. And Mac and Linux hosts were not affected, so okay, all right. Oh my god, it's taking a few times, right? Training, like ordering more stuff on Amazon. Yeah, exactly. I probably have to order it every day so I can run up and down the stairs every time. The problem is my wife isn't there, so there's no one to pick it up. All right, so here they explain what the hell is going on. So honestly, I don't really care about what is a rapid response content and what is a sensor content, but they basically have like 2 types of updates in their sensor. So their sensor is basically, this is like a system application or service that runs on Windows that collects any type of events, right? And to gather and capture those type of events, they use something that is called patterns, right? So when you or patterns and rule sets, right? And we have that type of sensor as well that is able to detect a certain level of system events and some stuff, right? And of course, you always need to update this on the fly because when an incident happens, for example, a ransomware attack happens that has a very specific pattern on system events, you want to publish a content update to update the rules and patterns, and you want to do this as fast as possible, right? So this is like an update that doesn't update the client itself, but it just updates some sort of the rule sets. It's very similar to a signature update on antivirus, right? And this is what happened. And they seem to have like 2 types of update. All right. And it was an issue with this year, the rapid response content. I also have found something like, here, you can see. This rapid response content is stored in a proprietary binary file that contains configuration data. It is not code or a kernel driver. So that means, although every technical expert was saying something like, oh, they messed up their drivers, it's really just like this binary file that contains the config data for the sensor that that caused the crash. You can also read more about those technical details, but honestly, it's actually not that much interesting because, well, this is probably only interesting for Falcon developers. But here, that is what is interesting. So how do we prevent this from happening again? If they can, that's a part of the question, right? So here they say what they do to make sure something like this won't happen again. And you can say like, well, maybe they do this, maybe not. But I honestly believe this had such a big impact. You can definitely be sure those people who are not doing this type of work, they gonna get fired, right? So this is like the CEO will knock on your door and make sure that you're doing all this stuff. Otherwise, you're getting fired. Probably. And here you can also read like the statement from the CEO, technical details. Here's also the file that caused this issue. I think the content of the channel file is located here in the drivers CrowdStrike directory. I think this is also part of the reason why a lot of people thought, it is the driver. But it's actually this binary file that is, having those rule sets or patterns or whatever you want to call it. As long as one of the files in the folder has a timestamp, it will be active content. Symptoms include host experience a bug check blue screen error related to file consensor. So I think like this rule set was somehow, I think it was empty or something like this. And then the driver or the sensor didn't know what to do with it and caused the system crash. So it's probably like something like, I would say somebody, if that would be developed in Python, you probably would say there was a try except catch phrase missing somewhere, probably something like that, right? So something like if file is not correct, then don't execute it or something like that. So that probably could have prevented it. But what is a bit more interesting for me is like, how the hell did this go to through QA? Which is kind of crazy. And this is really interesting to read more about. I just need to find it. I think it was something with validator, right? Yeah, so templates instances are created and configured through the use of the content configuration system, which includes the content validator that performs validation check on the content before it's published. So they have some sort of validation system. But for some reason, the validation system didn't pick it up. And here you can see, add additional validation checks to the content validator for rapid response content. So a new check is in progress to guard against this type of problematic content. So that actually translates to, there is a validation that says, if file is empty, then don't publish it or something like this, right? Probably you can code it in a few minutes, right? But this is what it actually means. Let's go through it. There has to be some. Here it is. Due to a bug in the content validator, one of the two templates passed validation despite containing problematic content data. And the problem is, like, if you are some sort of, because my question was, if you are some sort of team, like a senior developer, right? So those updates usually don't get through without somebody confirming it, right? So there has to be some person, this dude who clicked on a button that says publish, and he shouldn't have clicked on it. The question is, why the hell did somebody click that button? So what's going on? But you can definitely say, like, there is a validator, like some sort of check involved. It says, like, if the file is okay or not. Call it something like a linter for, like, Python code or Ansible in Terraform that lints the file and checks if everything is okay, if the format is right, and so on. And the validator had this bug that it didn't trigger a validation false or something like this. So it was marked green. And if you are that guy, right, you're sitting there, I don't know how long he's like working for CrowdStrike, maybe a few years, like 5-6 years, maybe even more. And he sits there every day or every week. That's just how I imagine it in my fantasy, right? But just imagine you are that guy sitting there. You're clicking on buttons, right? And you are validating code and publishing updates. And there is a green check mark from the validator. And there has always been a green check mark from the validator. You do that every day or every week for years and years, and it was never a problem. Guess what? You gotta click on that button and you gotta publish it if the validator says it's gonna be good. And that is actually what happened, right? So, I mean, I don't want to be that guy. I don't know if that guy was fired or something like that. I don't know. But that is what I can imagine. This is what has happened, right? And it's some sort of combination of human error. Because if this is such a critical update, if this is so important, you have to look at the file, right? Manually. You have to open it and see, okay. Even if the validator says it's okay, right? You should have do this, or you should have done all of this stuff here, what they literally say they should do, right? But maybe, yeah, somebody says it in the chat. Yeah, maybe it's a Friday. I mean, it literally was a Friday, right? So July 19th. No, was it a Friday? Yeah, it was a Friday. Friday afternoon, you want to go home. You have one last update to push, and the validator says, "Oh, it's good, you can publish it." Guess what? You wanna go out with your colleagues, wanna drink some beer, yeah, wanna enjoy the weekend. You gotta click on that button, right? and then the next day you go to work, or maybe on Monday, you walk in the company and says, "Hey, how is everybody doing? How was your weekend?" And everybody's looking at you and say, "Yeah, you're gonna be dead." That's probably what happened, yeah. Maybe not exactly like this, but I can just imagine it happened somehow, yeah. And this is like, yeah. Please don't say something like switch to Linux in the chat. Guys, you should be smarter, right? I mean, we are IT and tech nerds here, yeah? Don't say something stupid like switch to Linux, okay? Thank you. Yeah, so again, this is how I imagine this in my fantasy. So what could have happened? But the question I really, for me personally, is: can we honestly do something to avoid this will ever happen again? I think the answer is no, because there's always going to be a guy that wants to have weekend. And if there is some nasty code issue, there is a catch, try, exception block that is not written by the developers. The developers don't care, because there was never been a problem. You have done it 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 times, and there was never an issue. People are gonna get lazy. You don't always do the things with the cautiousness, or don't always do that as careful as you should do this. I mean, we all know it, yeah? We all work for companies, and we want to enjoy weekends. We want to spend time with family and stuff. We are not married with our jobs. I mean, hopefully we aren't, but yeah, some people might be, but hey, not blaming on you, but yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying, like, those problems will always happen. And no matter if we have AI, if we have, like, I don't know, many talented developers, if we have those steps and those checks all in place, because you can say they had a process for checking this, right? But if there is one item in that chain, or one problem in that chain, and that is a critical part, and there were some, yeah, like a row or a path of failures, right? Then incidents like this will happen, right? And I feel so sorry for all the people that were affected by this, because I've read some messages in our Discord that people had to manually reset hundreds of servers and hundreds of clients. I mean, I feel so sorry for you, because yeah, that meant, like, on a Friday, that meant like the weekend is gone, right? You can go back to work and work on Saturday, Sunday, and try to repair what damage has been caused by another company. And I can just imagine, whoa, I'm really interested in, does CrowdStrike have to pay for this outage to their customers, to their partners? Because they will be sued at some point. Definitely. I mean, if the hospitals, airports, and what's so on, I'm pretty sure they have some type of insurance for things like this. But yeah, I'm really interested in what will happen after that. Yeah. The problem is rather that there is no self-healing, like booting from an older snapshot. Yeah, the problem is, like, I mean, this is probably one thing that we could learn from this. And I'm probably taking Microsoft into responsibility here, because why the heck does Microsoft allow something like this, right? Why the hell does Microsoft allow such a deep level access to their systems without having their own Q&A testing, right? So, for example, if you want to publish like an application on the Microsoft Store, as a developer, you have to send this application to Microsoft first, and Microsoft has to acknowledge it, and only then it's going to be published. And what happened with cybersecurity vendors, Microsoft is just going to be, okay, so here you have the access. We trust you that you don't do stupid things, so here you go. And yeah, it's going to be fine, right? So that's what Microsoft did. And now, because it's an issue, Microsoft goes and says, "Oh, the European Union is the bad actor here, so it's your fault." Well, I'm saying, no, it's your fault that you don't write your operating system in a way that something like this is not likely to happen, right? And you can see, like, other operating systems do that, like macOS. I don't know how it's working on Linux, because I think, like, on Linux always had problems like this with kernel panics and stuff like that. If you are developing those low-level applications, I mean, like, CrowdStrike even had this issue on Linux on April. Somebody said in the chat, right? So they had the exact same issue on Linux as well. But I really would be interested to know if that would be possible on macOS. I never had any kernel panic on macOS, and probably because macOS is such a lockdown system by Apple, right? They only have their own proprietary stuff, their own drivers and stuff for their own devices. So it's more unlikely that you don't have to test your operating system and code against each and every hardware configuration, something like that. Something like Microsoft has to do. So they have a much more difficult job than Apple, of course, right? But I think they probably have to ask themselves, so if they still allow this low-level access to vendors, or if they have to rewrite some of their code or prevent something like this from happening, and better develop their own APIs that vendors or application developers can use to collect the necessary data from the system, but instead not do it on their own. That's a question. I don't really know. But as far as I know, Microsoft is just blaming others and probably not doing anything different. But yeah, we will see. I don't know. All right, so let me just go through some of the chat here. The CrowdStrike issue overshadowed the current Windows July update that caused systems to boot in BitLocker recovery, which we're fighting with for the last week. Yeah, I mean, it's like, so what can you say? Like, issues will always happen. I think that the biggest problem here is that usually when a Windows update is damaged, I don't know if it ever happened that a Windows update that is damaged affected every system. Like, it probably happens like that a Windows system is affecting a large proportion of devices. But this problem really affected, like, every Windows system, right? As far as I know. So, like, every system that had CrowdStrike Falcon installed. And not just a proportion of it. That wouldn't be terrible. For example, like, when we publish updates for devices or endpoints, we have something like a rolling update. So we first release it to 1,000 devices. Then after, like, some time, we extend this and then update it. If there are no issues reported, then we update it to, like, 10,000 devices or so. And I think this is what you can criticize at CrowdStrike. This is what I would think. Like, I'm really worried why this is not somewhere here in their how do we prevent this from happening again? Content update and rollback testing. So yeah, okay, right. But why the hell was it even published without proper testing on a device? This is something I don't know. So and why don't they roll it out in waves, right? Why do they roll it out to every device? As far as I'm reading here, they're not doing or changing this, right? But anyway, I mean, this is like developer stuff. Like, developers can probably say there are reasons behind this or not. I'm not a developer. I'm just, like, logically, I would say, like, it would be a good idea to not update every device at the same time. Maybe just 1,000 devices, then wait a bit until there's nothing reported, and then push it. Yeah. But yeah, all right. So, I don't know. these are basic questions that I'm still not clear on. Yeah, me neither. I mean, the document doesn't say it, right? I mean, it's great that they have a document like this, and they're answering a lot of the questions, but not all of them. And I think like there's a discussion that we need to have in the industry for longer than a week or so, right? So this is a discussion. I'm pretty sure like CEOs and like product managers of cybersecurity companies are talking about this continuously. I mean, I can just say, like the CEO of Sophos already reported to this. Maybe I just can show it to you. Sophos. If I find it. I probably can say it, but you can probably read it on LinkedIn or something like this. So it would be, because the first thought that I had is CrowdStrike is one of the biggest competitors of Sophos in that space, I would say. My immediate thought would be, it would be so easy for Sophos to jump on it and say, oh, so bad that you bought CrowdStrike, you better should have bought Sophos. And no one in the company did that. Even not the CEO of Sophos, right? They did a very, very good response, saying like, okay, so it is important to find out what is going on. It's important to communicate with the customers and have a discussion and be careful about things like this. But they never really jumped on it and said like, oh yeah, you bought the wrong vendor or something like this. I mean, this would be very unprofessional. As well as like, look, this incident can happen to any company at any time. I think we are never 100% secured from this. And when it happens to us, other people would do the same. No, that is not a good way to deal with it. I think the response from the industry was pretty professional and very good. And I think this leads to a longer discussion in the industry about how we're dealing with those things. But again, like, having a read through this documentation, I probably would say there are still a few open questions, and honestly, they should have gone in a bit more detail in about, so what the hell is going on here? Like, what does local developer testing mean? What is that? Does it mean that, like, before a developer makes a change, they're gonna install it on their local device and then test it? I don't know, right? So this needs further explanation, this needs further discussion, because we all know the impact has been devastating. Honestly, if you would have said this to me like 1 or 2 weeks ago, I would say like, okay, so this is probably so unlikely that something like this happens, but it still happened, right? So, and we know we are vulnerable in IT. If we go back to the question, the original question, how vulnerable are we? We are pretty damn vulnerable, yeah, because we're just so reliant on that system. And if somebody messes up something, this has such a huge impact, and I think like the world recognized how big the impact could have or can be, right? Anyway, I think these are just my thoughts about it. And I'm so happy that you joined the discussion and yeah, put your thoughts in the chat. It's really, really interesting. I'm sorry, I can't take on each and every question, especially the off-topic questions. I probably answer it. Yeah, so if you want to continue the discussion with me, feel free to join the Discord. I think this is going to be the best time to say we have such a great and friendly community. So join our community and continue the discussion. That would be great. And if you have a personal question, not a personal question, but a question to be personal, I'm going to answer it on Discord. So whenever I find the time. So sometimes I don't immediately respond, so I'm so sorry for it. But yeah. So yeah, feel free to send me a DM on Discord. I'll put it in the chat and let's discuss it. Doing a stage development might be too preferred way as long as it's just about features. When it comes to security, how long do you want to stretch this development wave? Yeah, that's really a good point. I think part of the problem I have with this is like local developer testing. What the hell does that mean? You cannot really tell me that for each and every content or pattern updates. I mean, we do signature updates at Sophos like every 15 minutes, for example, for some of the AV endpoints. You don't want a developer to do this local testing. You don't want to wait for this, especially if there is an attack or an incident going on. There are sometimes even minutes you have to respond to this. Yeah, and I know we publish those signature updates each and every minute, right? So if there's something that you need to react to quickly, local developer testing is not going to happen, right? Of course, yeah. Stress testing, fuzzing, and fault injection. I mean, what the hell is going on, right? There will always be situations where you have to immediately push out something, and I don't really know. The question is still open. They didn't really talk about why or what was the purpose of this update, right? This is something that I never seen. I mean, you probably can update me if there is a section where they talk about what was the purpose of this update. Was it just like a stupid idiot, like a part-time developer who's working like 1 or 2 weeks at CrowdStrike and saying, oh, I think this is going to be a good update, so I'm going to push it, and then, oh, it's going to go through QA and so on. Or did they want to update something specifically? Was there a bug that they wanted to tackle? Or was there a cybersecurity incident or a pattern update that was so critical and so important they had to do it on Friday evening? That is a question that is still open, right? So, and I think they would actually be much more professional if they would do some sort of investigation and finding out why the hell did they even create this update. I mean, I understood why there was a failure in the validation checking and why they pushed it and shouldn't have pushed it, but why the hell was it even created? Who has created this and why? That's a question, because I think that's part of the issue here, because I can just imagine a situation where there are some quality of life updates. And sure, they can wait a few days until they get published. I mean, some feature updates even stay in pipeline for months and years until developers come to it and push it. But I think something like this can only happen if there is such a critical, such an important thing that you need to immediately push this update out. So you can't really wait any more longer for a developer to test it, to do stress testing and stability testing. You have to push it out immediately because there is a cybersecurity incident, a ransomware attack, or something like this you need to react to. And when the validation check is okay, so then you publish it, right? I think this is what happened, but I still don't see the reason what exactly was the reason for the update and what did they try to do. Because that they failed, okay, we all know, but what the hell was the reason for it? If you still to stick to stupid Friday rules, you slept under a rock for the last 15 years. There's a reason why zero-day exploits are called like that. Yeah, exactly. So it has to be something like that, right? But they don't talk about it, unfortunately. Or maybe I didn't read it. I don't know. I mean, you probably can tell me, but yeah. Or maybe it is so stupid that they don't want to reveal it. I don't know. Maybe it was really something completely stupid. So somebody who worked like 1 or 2 weeks at CrowdStrike and pushed a code change, and then it automatically got into the main branch or something like this. I don't really know. Maybe it's so stupid that they don't want to say it. That's probably the reason, yeah. But yeah. I mean, that's a part that worries me, because I get all of that stuff, like the validator that didn't do the check properly, the guy that clicked on a button because validation says it's true. Okay, I already get it. But if there's a reason for it, it must be so dumb that they don't want to reveal why the heck did this file even be submitted to the main branch. I don't know. But hey, it can happen to any company. I think there's, sure, you can blame those guys, but I think you can never be like 100% secure that something like this does not happen. But it's really, I think, for a company like that a company with this large scale, it's a disaster. Yeah. You can't get hacked if your PC won't boot, so it's very secured. Yeah, maybe it was a security update. And maybe somebody thought, oh, it's gonna be great. So if you pull the cable, nobody can hack you. So I'm gonna push this update. It's gonna make our customers more secure. I don't know. You can even say, like here, the channel file with timestamp is the problematic version. This or later is the reverted good version. So this is kind of interesting. Like, these guys were pretty fast with reverting it. So somebody knew, oh shit, I've done a terrible mistake, I'm gonna revert it. So this is they were really, really fast recognizing it, but those technical details are only coming like 5 days later. Yeah, anyway. You can see I'm still not done with this. I'm still surprised, worried by this, and yeah, I don't know what happened. We finally, I think 100% we will never know what happened. Only the guys working at CrowdStrike, but of course they are not allowed to talk about it. Only through the marketing materials, which is okay. But yeah. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Please tell me in the comments or put it in the chat. If you're watching the recording of this live stream, you can continue the discussion. There's one announcement that I quickly want to do. The next days, I'm gonna focus on creating some content on Patreon. So for all of the members supporting me on Patreon, which you should do, by the way, so you will get some updates about the future projects and yeah, all of the stuff that I do. And I will also publish all the new videos with technical write-ups on Patreon. So, which means no, this is not behind a paywall, so you don't have to sign into Patreon. You don't have to log into Patreon. You can watch all my new updated or my new published videos on Patreon, where I can add some attachments for files. For example, I can share some Markdown files with write-ups or links or something like this. So this is what you can, or what you will find there in the future. And yeah, again, you don't need to. If I know some people don't like Patreon so much, so that's totally fine. You don't need it. But just to let you know, I will update a bunch of content there, and I will start creating write-ups for the tutorials with command blocks and stuff in a Markdown format, and there you can find it. All right. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna update the SSL certificate file for the video. It's sometimes a bit hard for me to upload videos that are that I've done on YouTube like 1 or 2 years ago. But I try to go through all of the older videos where there are some documentation of write-ups missing, and I'll try to re-upload them on Patreon with the technical documentation and write-ups and link that in the YouTube video so you can find them there. And then I'm gonna give you an update. Because there are some tutorials where I think they are still relevant in 2 or 3 years. So this evergreen content, like the self-signed certificate video, which is like, this probably will be valid like in 10 years as well. Maybe not in 10, but maybe 5. And then you can still watch this tutorial and you have the write-up for it. So, and I think Patreon is a great platform where I can put all the videos with the attachments and all of the links and stuff. Because on YouTube videos, you can't really add an attachment, which is also a security feature, but yeah, that's it. But I will put the link in the YouTube videos to the attachments on Patreon so you can still watch it. So that's, I'm gonna find out how I can upload the older videos again. But yeah. So yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining the discussion. I think it was pretty interesting. And yeah, let's hope that something like this doesn't happen anymore. Not to CrowdStrike, not to any other security company. We don't like to get fired, and we don't like to work on weekends to fix some of the mess that a few people have done. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can just imagine the guys who were involved into this progress. They can't look in the mirror anymore. I don't. They're gonna feel so bad. I hope this doesn't happen to me at any time. But yeah, it's like if you're working in IT, you have to deal with that responsibility, right? It's like that. Anyways, so yeah, I think we will continue discussing this for longer. And yeah, I hope you're gonna enjoy the next live stream in 2 weeks. And until then, have a nice day. Hope you don't have to revert a lot of Windows machines because of this. And I'm gonna catch you like in the next video or in 2 weeks in the live stream. Thank you so much for being here, and yeah, take care. Bye bye.